Greetings and welcome to the Marginally Geeky Show, episode number 58. I'm your host for the evening, Eugene Stevens. Tonight I'm joined by Chris, Ray, and Shaun. How are y'all doing?
Peachy.
All right. Just a quick programming note, because I have a feeling people who probably listen to this show might also listen to the Creatively Geeky Show. We recorded an episode, at least we thought we did, and for whatever reason the recording didn't take. So when we record next month's episode, it may be jam packed if we can remember all the stuff that happened. So
Yeah.
be like, remember what you did in January? Me either.
No.
So we shall see. Tonight we are discussing quarter share. Now let me get this straight. It's called quarter share. Trader's Tales from the Golden Age of the Solar Clipper. That's like the entire name of this thing. By Nathan Lowell. We've already covered one of Mr. Lowell's books. We were just a few months ago. We recorded The Wizard's Butler, and that was actually a I guess it's going to become a series. That's actually the second series we got started on. This first series is one that we all started listening to and then got hooked on, not giving anything away, and then was immediately like, oh, he has more. Okay, cool. Let me hire hook that one up because I'm definitely listening to that one. So, if I remember correctly, Shaun, you're the one that turned us on to this series.
I did.
Yes. So how did you get started on this?
So I actually got started on this as a audio book. Way back in 2007 when he was releasing these, he was putting these audio books out, like he produced them himself. So, and it's Dr. Nathan Lowell.
Oh, okay.
He wrote them and then put them out in audio because he couldn't get anything published. And I remember having to wait week per week for the episodes. Now, the original episodes, Dr. Lowell also narrated them.
Okay.
So they're different from what we listen to in Audible. I think Audible is Jeffrey Kafer or something. Who he does a great job. But the original few times I listened to them, it was quite different by having Nathan Lowell read them. His voice the cadence of his voice is a lot calmer. So yeah, I actually found these when I was getting stuck in the basement to sleep when my in-laws came over, kind of thing. So I ended up going in the basement, sleeping and flicking through, looking for audiobooks to listen to, and I found this one. So I absolutely loved it. Now, just a little history on Nathan Lowell. So, as I said, he has a doctorate in education technology, and he'd always wanted to be a writer, but just couldn't make a career out of it. And then he, what was it now? He stumbled into podcasting around 2006. He was actually he was working, what was it now? National Center of Severe and Sensory Disabilities, or something along those lines. And he was looking for a way of giving like high bandwidth quality education to people with low bandwidth for the visually impaired and that kind of thing. So when he was researching podcasts, he stumbled across audio books. So he was like, well, I learned this, so let's see if I can figure out how to do this. So he decided he wrote a book, and then he narrated it, and then he tried releasing it in audio form. And that was his first book. And then all of a sudden, as we'll discuss, the ending of this particular book was people really enjoyed it, and it was like, yeah, you have to write more now. So he continued doing that, and that's how he learned like podcasting and stuff like that, through doing the audio book. And that was 2007, around there. In 2012, he became a full-time writer. He quit everything and living the dream now.
That's awesome.
he grew up in around Maine.
Mhm.
So like the first audiobook that we were listening to, because it's a lot of nautical themes in it. Well, it comes by naturally, like he's writing what he knows. So just put it in space. But yeah, if you ever watch any like videos of him, like he's a really calm guy. He actually apparently he was doing like podcasts daily. Like he would, as he was going for a walk or something like that. They might not be very long ones, but yeah, it'd be his thoughts and all that. He's got like podcasts on like helping writers and stuff like that. So yeah, pretty cool.
Yeah, very cool actually. Um, I'll go ahead and jump in here real quick. So yeah, was looking for something to listen to, and asked the group, and Shaun was like, "We'll give this one a shot, and we will definitely talk about the quote unquote ending for this book, um, shortly here." But yeah, like it was immediately, I just started listening to it, and I was just like, I'm really enjoying this. It's never energetic. It's never exciting. It's it quite honestly, if you were just to describe the events in this book, they would be very mundane and probably considered to be very boring. But the way it's told, and I think we'll talk about this in a moment, but the fact that it's set in space definitely helps. But no, it's very calming and soothing, and I love the characters. Like I like the characters a lot in this book. And so you like you said, I can understand why people listen to it and were like, "Oh no, you have to do more because I have to find out what happens to these people." So, Ray and Chris, thoughts, initial thoughts?
First. Okay. So, I well, we were kind of listening. Did you listen to it before I did? It was. I don't know. It's like what you said, Eugene. It doesn't. It's not. It's not intense. It's not an intense book, which is kind of nice. It's one of those books where it's sort of like if you just want something, you want to read something, but you're not sure what, or you're in like a reading slump or something, and you just need something to spark that joy again of reading. This is a good one because it's not too heavy. It starts off a little heavy.
Yeah.
Sorry, the dog. The reason, like how the whole story starts is it's a heavy beginning, but it's I don't know. It's just nice. It's nice. I don't like listening to books that are going to make or read books that are going to make me sad or that are going to like torture me or anything like that. I don't like reading stuff like that. So this is a nice book. It's nice.
Should put that on the review. It's
nice.
nice.
It is nice. It's nice. I don't think this one particular. Other things in series down the road get a little
dicier, but yeah,
dark parts.
Yeah.
But this particular, the start of this is nice.
Yes, it is. Ray?
Yeah, I enjoy just the day-to-day life that is what we follow in that, and yeah, it's just an interesting take on day-to-day life. I think that's what I like about it.
Yeah.
You're hearing about somebody else's daily, just coming of age story, essentially.
Yeah, basically.
Mm-hmm.
So let's go and jump into it. So the breakdown of this book is it focuses our main character. His name is Ishmael Wong. He does introduce himself that way, and one of the things I like about it is set quite a bit of the time in the future. Space travel is very normalized at this point. But apparently people still kind of, understand quote unquote the classics as in, like some pop culture from our time. So like when he says, call me Ishmael, people are like, really? He's what, 19, 17, 19, I think?
18.
18.
18.
His mother unfortunately has just passed away, and they were living on, she was a, okay, my cat's lost his mind. They were living on a planet that was basically controlled by the company, and so now that she is gone, he doesn't really have much money, and they don't really have a place for him to have a job or anything. Because if you're not working for the company, you don't get to be on the planet. and so he's trying to figure out there's like two ways he can afford to get off of the planet, and it's to A, join the military, or B, join a shipping company at basically the entry level, and that's what it is. He joins this shipping company. He's on board of this ship, and he starts making friends. He starts learning this job. He's a smart guy.
Mhm.
It particularly helps. I love the fact that as he's going through, he specifically says he kind of goes into a trance when he is taking tests and stuff. And I definitely know people like that. But yeah, it's just his day to day life and how he's slowly but surely starting to wake his way through space and kind of make his way up the ladder in this company and on the ship. So um, let's start with Ishmael himself. So like I said, he's a very likable guy. He's smart, but he's definitely not like a genius by any means. Um, I find him to just be very. I'm trying to look. I'm looking for a term. I can't think of the term I'm looking for though. He's just an average guy, really. Like I said, he is smart. He's definitely not dumb, but he's not a genius. He is very likable. He does have a good sense of humor, but you definitely wouldn't say he's like the life of the party by any means. Um, yeah, he's just this likable dude. So, um, yeah, like I said, it's hard to
There's not
describe
much else
this
to
book.
say. Yeah, it really is. It's a character-driven book.
Yes.
It really is. There's story to it, but it's absolutely character-driven. And yeah, we follow Ishmael through the whole series. It does become the series. Um, but yeah, your Ishmael is you are learning the world through Ishmael's eyes,
Yes.
and it's kind of cool that yeah he grew up on planet, so he didn't really know anything about this way of life, and so as he's learning it, it's good that we kind of get to learn it too. So
Yeah, and that was an excellent way to frame it, is the fact that he didn't know anything about it. So as people are, it's not, he has to ask questions. Well, why is it this way? Why does this work? And it's informing us, the reader, but it also is done in a way that's not like, oh, well, now it's time to explain why we do that. You know what I'm saying? It's very natural in the way that it explains things.
Yeah.
yes,
Lowell's very good. Like in all of Lowell's books, that's how he does it. It's a first person perspective, and he explains things through the character learning rather than something from the outside's coming in, like giving you more knowledge than what the character has.
Yep.
And all of his writing is like that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, going back to the Wizard's butler, I mean, he goes into that job not knowing what is going to be asked of him, and so he's learning that job as he's going along. So that's very much the same. And it's also interesting in that we talked about it, the Wizard's butler. There's definitely a lot of fantastical stuff going on, but it's very mundane for what it is. It's like it's never
well,
really super exciting, but it's so enjoyable.
his first task on the ship is making
Oh,
coffee.
I love the
Yeah.
first.
And,
Yes.
and so he describes making coffee, but it's great. It's a great way to learn about the character as well. So, yeah, it's
Well, yeah, his boss even tells him, he's like, "Well, you passed the first test, and your buddy over there didn't pass." He's like, "Well, what test?" He's like, "Making coffee." He's like, "Yeah, I asked you what did you think of it, and instead of just saying, well, it's fine, or yeah, I guess it could be improved, and leaving it at that, you were like, no, I can do this. I can make it better, and you went to it." So coffee ends up playing a major role throughout this entire series.
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
Um, the book's never like super focused on food. It does talk about food quite a bit because he is a cook. In fact, when he does go on his first shore leave, like they're like, "Well, what are you going to do?" He's like, "I'm going to go eat." They're like, "That's it."
Yeah.
He's like, "Yes, I don't want to eat anything that I hadn't had to make and I
yeah.
hadn't had to clean up." And
Yeah.
as a parent, I'm sure we all understand that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yep.
So my grandmother tells me every time, I'm like, "How is it?" She goes, "It's wonderful because I didn't make it." So Um, so anyway, the ship that he's on is a solar clipper. It is a trade ship, and it's called the Lois McKendrick. And we end up finding it has some history. along with the captain. It's actually named after her grandmother, who stood up and fought and managed to get things changed for people so that the people who were on these ships could actually trade themselves. Whereas it used to be just strictly company business between company planets, company ships, and so it's opened up a bunch of different trade routes and a bunch of other opportunities and stuff. One of the first people he meets is his good buddy. He just becomes friends with him, and he's friends with him pretty much thick or thin the rest of the way through. Is Pip, aka Philip Carstairs. Thoughts on Pip?
Ha!
He's a great sidekick.
He's a Pip.
He is. He's Pip. Great sidekick in a story like this, where he's knowledgeable but not too knowledgeable. Which is funny because when you find out his history as well, it's like, well, you should know some of this too. But because he grew up on a I don't know. Well, I mean, it comes if you're listening to this, you've already listened to the book, so
yeah,
you find out that he's grown up on a private ship. So now you're learning, as Ishmael does, that there's differences between private ships and company ships too. So I thought that was kind of interesting too.
Yeah,
I thought it was a great set, like the storylines, how it added so much more, bringing Pip's character in, and then because that taught him everything about trading for the most part, which becomes huge later on. Now keep in mind, when Nathan Lowell was writing this, I don't think he had planned on making this a huge series. So, but he gave himself all the things he needed for all of Ishmael's life.
Yes.
In this first book, which is amazing.
Yeah.
And he really went with it. But having Pip in there offered, because he's learning about the ship and he's learning about space travel and stuff like that. But giving him Pip as well opened up a whole other avenue of trading and stuff like that, and it's explained really, really well, like them setting up the mercantile and stuff like that, and doing it incorrectly at first, and it's not one of those things where he's getting it right off the bat every time.
Yeah,
we've got, they're screwing up and learning from their mistakes, which really makes the story really come alive, and it's a lot more believable.
Yes.
Everything, even though it's set in space, it's I can relate to this the whole time. And Nathan Lowell is a master at that.
I want to talk about that in just a moment when the rest of our group gets back. They're looking for something. I'm guessing it's a cat or a dog. What you said about him working in education definitely fits a certain puzzle piece. So in order to move up in the company and in the articles, basically the rules for being on these trading ships is you have to take tests. And one of the things about Pip is he's tried taking this one test 2 or 3 times and fails it every time. And he's like, this, why can't you pass it? He goes, I don't know. I get in there. It's like my brain just shuts off during the test. And so through a conversation with someone else, he finds out that, well, the test, there's multiple ways to take the test, because it's not, originally it wasn't known, these sailors, these sailors weren't known for their educational prowess. So, there's more than one way to take a test. So whenever they go in to take the test, he basically talks to the guy who's in charge of cargo or the guy who's in charge of testing. They set it up with a cargo handler, and he basically was like, "Well, come with me," and just kind of asked me. It was like a conversation, but he was asking him everything he needed. And then whenever he finds out the results, not only did he had passed the test he was going for, he actually passed the test above hand, because he knew this stuff. He like Ray said, he grew up in a trading family, so he knew a lot of this stuff. It's just he's not a good test taker, and I know people like that. My wife is one of those people.
I'm like that.
She she would take a class. She knew the information, and she just got in there, and as soon as the test started, her brain just shut off. And most of the time it wasn't to the point where she would fail things, but she definitely would not have knocked it out of the park as I would have expected. So, or as she expected. So,
Yeah.
But yeah, so real quick, so we've kind of talked on this a little bit. We keep talking about how kind of mundane it is and how um, it's very slice of life type of story. Um, would you have enjoyed it as much if this had been set on just a straight, maybe not even historical, like modern day shipping? Like we're talking about boats on an ocean.
Yeah, I was thinking that, and like it's actually kind of reminiscent of like Horatio Hornblower,
Mm-hmm.
like coming in as like the lowest of the low on the ship and working his way up too. So and I can see a lot of nautical stories and all that. That's the format, and he just took that format and placed it in space. But like even like Sharp's War and stuff like that. Like I've read a few of those nautical ones, and I always enjoyed it. Uh, Even though I'm not usually into time period pieces that go in the past, I'm more of a like science fiction, fantasy. But I don't know. Sometimes like the Navy and stuff like that on the old battleships. I get into a binge on those ones. Every now and then I'm like, oh, this was really good. Oh, this is really good. Oh, I really enjoyed this one. It's like, holy crap. So I don't need like the super highs and like the the climaxes in my stories and all that to recognize they're good. I need the character development, and Lowell has this one in spades. It almost feels like I think people like it so much is because you can pluck any average person and put them into this situation and you could relate to it. So any reader could relate to it by, oh man, what would I do in this situation? Yeah, I'd probably try doing something similar. Unless they're like a psychopath or something like that. Like destroy the ship or something. But
yeah. I keep thinking about that. I'm like, would I have enjoyed this as much if it wasn't set in space? I think the answer is yes, because like you said, it is character driven. So even if we were to drop these characters into modern day shipping and like I'm like you, I'm not normally a historical reader. But even if it was set historically, I think having these characters, I would have been like, no, I think I would have enjoyed this because I still would have liked to got to know Ishmael and what happened and what he was doing and everything else. It would have definitely flavored it a little different because being set in the future, it's definitely a little more civilized
yeah,
than it would have been, especially if it was a historical piece. Although, and we're not giving anything away here. There are books later on, and we definitely run into some of those situations where the other ships that are in the out in space there are not as civilized. In some cases, it's just because the way the crew interacts with each other or the rules and policies that are on the ship. Um, if when we get around to it, we'll definitely discuss that because that's
yeah.
an integral part to some of the later books. Speaking of the later books, we'll just throw this out there real quick. So this actually is like what, 3 trilogies? Technically 4 trilogies.
I think we're on the 4.
Okay, so the first trilogy is essentially his time until he moves on to the first ship, right? Or to the next ship,
Yeah,
right?
the first 3 books are the Lois McKendrick,
Okay, yeah.
and then like that one, and with the next series begins with him leaving the academy, I believe.
Right.
You know.
And then after that, it's like we skip time, like we actually skip forward, in time. This one is pretty much back to back to back.
Oh, literally back to back to back,
Yeah.
especially that between the first and the second. But
Oh,
they all, and the second and the third is the same way.
yeah. So our first initial story is just his story on this ship. So if you read this first book and you haven't read the other 2 yet, like there's you do not have the story. Like you've even to begin to say you've started to get the story, but even then, like when you finish the first trilogy, you're just like, all right, so where's this going? Like this is off. This is not an ending.
No.
So, all right. So let's see here. So we've talked about Pip. Cookie. Cookie is just the classic to me. He's just the classic cook. He's well intentioned. He wants to teach the guys who are underneath him, what's going on. Hopes to get off their ass and get things done. But they have a great working relationship, and he even says so. He's like, we're a well-oiled machine. Like when one of us isn't here, the other two just get the job done. I have worked on teams like that. I love working on a team like that. So like my partner and I, today I was discussing before the show started. His son actually just graduated and came up to help us, and we were unpacking these um, these computer carts, and we just got in a system, and I mean we went through them a lot faster than I thought we were going to. Like I thought we were going to get a quarter of the way done with all the ones we have to get done by the end of today. We're over halfway done now, and it's just because we got in a system and we worked really well together. So, thoughts on Cookie?
That was one of the differences between the Podio book and this Audible book. I believe when Nathan Lowell first did it in the Podio book, he gave Cookie a bit of a French accent.
Really?
Just a slight, like he wasn't. It almost sounded like he learned English from someone that first language was French, kind of thing. And it was, I had a hard time reconciling the difference between the two audiobooks for that one. Out of all the things, it was Cookie's voice that it was like, oh, I don't know if I'm going to like this. And I got used to it because I had listened to it a few more times and all that stuff. But Jeffrey Kafer did amazing. But as for the character of Cookie, he was almost placed in there, I think, just to, when the story started chugging a little bit, you could give a little bit of a prod, and he could use Cookie to nudge the story in different directions. Just very few words, or like giving Pip something else to do or something like that. And that was great. It was brilliant. You're muted, Ray.
Ray and Chris, we can't hear you. Still can't hear you. All right. While they're working on their audio. Yeah, because it said y'all were muted for a moment there, and then y'all came back and it unmuted, but we still can't hear you. So let's see here. So we've talked about Pip. We've talked about Cookie.
Oh,
now I think I'm hearing something now.
Try that.
There, how's that?
There we go. I got you now.
Okay.
All right. So Cookie, before we move on, thoughts on Cookie?
So I was saying that Cookie's kind of the Yoda of the story. He's the one where he's like, I'll teach you, but you're going to learn my way. And he teaches people in a very unique way as well. But as Shaun was saying, he moves the story along with very few words as well, which is kind of Yoda-ish. So.
I love the fact that we talked about this. So both Pip and Ishmael work. There's 3 people in the team. They're basically the cooks, the food services on the ship, and it like I said, it's not like food is a huge part in this. Like he doesn't go into like detail after, over and over, but he definitely explains like, oh, well, this meal we had, soup and sandwiches, and that was just a very easy thing, and then moves on. It's not, we don't ever get bogged down in it, I should say.
Well, and it's things that make sense too, right? Like, okay, well, we're doing a pullout and all this. We're going to be busy, so let's do bento boxes. Let's do things that are finger foods and easy to pass out. And like, I like that they were able to do.
He does that with all of the things that Ishmael does. Like, it's part of what he's doing, but it's not everything he's doing. Which
even in the latter books, it's
the same
thing.
Well, and somebody like me, especially when he gets into the technical stuff, like with the environmental stuff, and even with a little bit of like astrogation, all that kind of stuff, where I'm like, it's not a big deal, because it's just just something he's doing for now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The next character I had written down. Was Big Bad Bev. She's definitely an imposing figure. Just because of her size, and he talks about it in the way she's dressed. But she's definitely not like. There's definitely not a hard edge to her by any means. In fact, later on, while they're doing trading or whatever, there's a point where Ishmael and her have got quite a deal on belts going, and I think it's when that's right when Pip goes to go buy some more belts, the person gives him a special belt made specifically for Ishmael because of him showing up with a Bev that says "boy toy."
Yeah.
So, and he wears it proudly. So, but yeah, the other characters in here are honestly, Pip and Cookie are probably some of the biggest ones. But I mean, Bev shows up quite a bit. So does some of the
There's
other
Bev,
trading
Brill.
partners. Yeah, Brill shows up quite a bit.
Brill's more in the second book, though.
Yeah,
She's a little bit in this one, but she's more in the second one. And then what's the girl?
Diane.
Diane.
Diane. He helps her out a little bit too.
Yeah.
Diane Francis. Like the environmental team, which will become bigger in the second book.
Yeah.
But he didn't introduce too many characters, and he gave them just enough airtime to make them likable. You feel familiar with them. Like, it's not like introducing a character just for a certain situation. He didn't have that. He introduced all the characters, and the situations all kind of mingled, like life, normal life.
The guy that moves like he's made of knives, like the
Maxwell.
Yes,
Mr. Maxwell.
Mr. Maxwell. What a great character.
Yeah,
everybody knows
he is so well written to be like such the hard ass, and if he looks at you the wrong way, you'll die kind of thing.
Yes.
But it turns out he's like heart of gold.
Exactly. That's a perfect way to describe it, because he even talks about at one point he comes in and smiles, and Cookie's like, I've known that man for 14 years and I still get nervous when he smiles. something along those lines.
Yes.
So some of the things that happen in the book, like we said, the book is very character driven, but some of the things that happen in the book is Shaun and I talked about it a little bit here. In order to move up, you have to take tests, and so that's how you gain. You move up in the classifications, and there's 4 different areas. To being on one of these ships, and so he helps Pip move up not once but twice. By having him, take a test, the flesh. What?
Orally.
Yes, orally. Definitely not, paper and pencil like you would normally expect. Or in this case, tablet. But he has decided that he's going to take all 4 tests, and everyone's like, all of the lower level characters, are like, why would you do that? Like, that's a lot of work. Why would you do that? And he's like, well, I don't ever want to get stranded again. And if I've, got certifications in all 4 levels, I've got a better shot of getting off of a planet or whatever. So I definitely, when he described it that way, I was like, oh no, that totally makes sense. Like,
like his reasoning behind it was so good, but then also the reaction to it by the different characters was really good, especially by Mr. Maxwell and Captain, what was her name? Jagon, whatever. Because you later find out that they did the same thing.
Yes, both of them are fully certified in all 4 areas, and they're the only other 2. So it's to them, I'm sure that's a thing, because they even ask, well, why are you doing this? And the answer he gives is smart. But it's obviously like, oh, well, this guy may be someone else after our own hearts. Like, we put all this time, effort, and energy into this, and this kid is apparently wanting to do the same thing. So I'm sure it was definitely one of those things that, if you were looking to, that's one of the other things that also, going back to what you said, Shaun, about him previously being in education. One of the things I love about not only this book, but Ishmael's character going forward is in all of the books, he's constantly pushing himself to better himself, but he also is pushing his fellow crewmates to better themselves. In fact, much later on, when he's in a position to oversee this, he is, pushing people, and they're just like, "Why are you like this? Why are you doing this?" He's like, "Because I want to see everyone succeed. I want to see everyone grow and become the best person they can be." So,
I am drawn to Ishmael that way.
Yes,
Because I work, I try and mimic that without knowing it as well. I see other people work, and it's like, hey, have you done this yet? And kind of show them what I know, because I had somebody help me out, and when I was first starting, and his name wasn't Shaun, so. But yeah, I think that's an important thing in a workplace, is having somebody like that to not only show you the ropes, but also show you what you're capable of, and help you find that.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. And I have worked at campuses where that hasn't been the mentality. It's just kind of like, oh well, here's your place. This is where you fit in. Don't really, if you stay there, that's cool.
Don't rock the.
In fact, I'd almost rather you not better yourself, because then you'll move on, and now I've got to find someone to replace you. And then I've worked at campuses that it's just like, so a lot of times a lot of people are I won't say afraid, but they're definitely like, I don't really want to tell my boss that I applied for this other job. And I've worked for the other people, those people who are both ways are just like, no, you don't really want to tell them that person that, because they're not going to, they're not going to take it well. And then there are the other people that are just like, oh my God, I hope you get that. That's great. Do you need me to write you a letter of recommendation? What can I do to help you succeed?
Mhm.
So, and he's definitely in that boat. So let's talk about the trading. Chris brought it up again when we were talking about it, kind of hinting about doing this book. This is resource management porn. Just like this, may be even more so the classification of that than the Bobaverse books, because the Bobaverse books are that as well. There's constantly, we have to get the printers, and we have to do this, and we have to figure out what's the best timetable, and we have to figure out how we move people in this. And this is that, maybe to the nth degree. And like I said, I could see why some people this would be a huge turnoff, and I'm eating this up with a spoon the whole time. They're like, okay, so if we do this, we can maximize this. And one of the interesting things is so Pip is apparently a genius about this, and they figure out that they can use the whole thing about having shares. The reason why the name of the book is he's a quarter share is he gets paid a certain amount of money, and then whenever this voyage is over, essentially his time is over, whatever extra money that the ship is able to make, it's it's broken into shares. And if you're a quarter share, then you would get a quarter share of whatever that additional profit is. And so they get to looking at it, where they get to figuring it out, and he and Cookie end up figuring out that not only can they make it so that you can eat better on the ship, like the ship is known for having good food, but they can make it so that everyone can actually eat better, but they can also use the extra storage to do trading, which would bring additional money in. And they talk about, they're like, everyone's happy here, everyone's eating, everyone feels safe, and I'm making more money now than I ever have on any other ship before. Which, it's one of those situations like, well, then why would you ever want to leave?
Yeah.
So, but along with that type of trading, we also have personal trading that goes on, and there are certain laws and limitations as to how you can do it, when you can do it, and everything. And it seems like most people are doing it a little bit here and there. But Pip is pretty brash about it. It was like, oh no, I've got some stuff. I'm gonna go trade it, and goes, their first stop goes off, on shore leave, and gets pulled back on, basically beaten up, broken arm, broken,
Mugged.
yeah, he gets mugged for his money, and basically sets him back to zero. So him and Ishmael are trying to figure out, well, is there a way that we can maybe do this and not get mugged doing this.
So, and the other thing that I liked about, because you mentioned about being a quarter share, so not only is it impact your pay, but it also impacts how much you can bring on the ship.
Yeah, your mass allotment.
So
Oh
yeah,
yes, yeah.
which I really like because it does talk. They do talk about how many kilos that they are allowed to bring on. So if it's a certain amount of kilograms, then okay, we could buy a lot of this, but it
trying to figure all that out.
Yeah, so it's trying to figure out not just what's the most value, but value per kilogram essentially. And I liked that they were able to do that.
Yes. Having those restrictions, and it makes sense. Like you would, if you were on a vessel, I'm sure there's limitations as to what you can and cannot bring and how much of something you can bring. So having those limitations on there made sense, but also was part of the fun of it, like you said, because it's like, well, we've only got so much money, but it's not just how much money can we spend. It's like, well, yeah, we could buy this, but it weighs a ton, so we can't really do that. So, and like I said, that's one of those things I'm sure just some people were probably just like, why are they talking about how much something weighs?
And
why is it so important?
It would have been 10 kilograms.
Yes. But anyway, so they stumble upon this idea of, well, what if we rented a booth and set it up, and what if we got some other people on the ship to maybe chip in and see if they wanted to do it as well? So they kind of form this little group, and then they get pulled in by the captain. And the captain's like, so I understand y'all are planning on doing this, and of course they're just like, yes, ma'am. And she's like, no, I think it's great. Here, take this. Like, she leaves a first they think it's a tablecloth, but it's actually like a banner.
Yeah.
That has her family's name on it and everything. McKendrick
Mercantile.
Yeah, Mercantile Incorporated. And they're like, well, what the hell is that? Whatever. So they go down and they set up a basically a little shop in the
table.
A little table. And they're like, well, honestly, they're like, yeah, we sucked at this. Like, we wouldn't have even had a tablecloth if it wasn't for this. Didn't have chairs or anything. I totally understand that. Like, working in working cons like I've definitely been, I remember back to those starter days. It's just like, okay, I've got a table. Now what?
It's like I worked at a farmer's market for a summer.
And that's what I'm picturing every time.
Yeah, well, and that's what it was when I listened to that for the first time, because now I've listened to it like 3 times now. It reminded me of that, because it's like everybody's booth based on what they sell is completely individual, but there's still some things that are sort of everybody sort of has, like the table, you have the tent. For when you do farmers market, you have to have weights to weigh down the tent, or else the tent blows away.
If you've never done it before, you don't have those weights, so you're tying off on somebody else's
tent. And
the couple that are setting up beside Bev and Ishmael, I've seen that couple.
Yeah.
So have I. I've also seen they describe the people that literally have the hover thing that they move stuff around. It's literally just the grab pouch. You literally just roll in, plop down, like, I'm good, I'm done, everything's set up, ready to go. I've seen those people at cons too. Like, those are the professionals that have been doing this for a while. They've been on the circuit. They know what's going on.
Oh yeah. There's
a person that that we used to go to the Port Elgin one. They'd show up with a trailer, and it used to be a horse trailer, and they converted it, and it's exactly that. They just roll up, open the doors, they're ready to go. It's like,
jeez, that was it, the food one?
Yeah, I think it was the meat one.
See, and I've so like the it's been a while since, with COVID and everything, it's been a while since we've done some cons. So I've done a couple of cons here and there, but I kind of have things down. This last con that I did, though, I was able to have my ecto there, at the table, essentially, for the first time. And there were things that I had never even thought about that was opened up to me, like the fact that one of my members brought I think about it like when we do parades, because we're going to be outside and we're wearing jumpsuits. So it's like, oh yeah, I'm definitely going to bring a cooler full of water. And I was just like, I could have brought a cooler full of water and just had it in the car. Why didn't I think of that? And it's one of those things. It's like, this is affording me so many more opportunities now. So yeah, that part by itself, like if you've ever done anything, like you said, at a farmer's market or a convention or anything like that, where you've had a booth or a table or something like that, um, he has to have done something like this at some point, because
Yeah.
his knowledge of this is too good to not be first person. So
I'll admit,
um
I have been a looky-loo before.
yeah. I'll be honest, I'm constantly
Oh yeah.
uh but yeah, so anyway, so they start doing this and things start to build up. Um and literally, like, they go out for their first outing, it worked okay. They go out for the second outing and it's already starting to build steam. And then at this point, like, the captain calls them in and isn't talking down to them, but it's just like, you're not thinking this through. Like, y'all need to really think about this. And of course, as she, starts laying out some stuff, they're like, holy crap, yeah, you're right. But the captain is well, actually, the higher ranking officers are all 110% behind this, because they're like, the crew's excited about it. It's keeping them out of trouble. It's keeping them from doing stupid things like Pip did. And so yeah, I could definitely see it. Of course, then again, this ship is also very positive. I love the fact that the ship, at least the first ship that he's on, is very positive. We'll talk about that when we get to those additional books, because I'm sure we will read the rest of these books eventually. They're too good not to
I'm
review.
already on the second one.
I had to stop myself.
I had to stop myself too.
I couldn't.
Yeah, no, I stopped.
Oh, but yeah, so yeah, just like I said, it's and if you're listening to this and you have not read this book, you're probably going, okay, so kid, 18-year-old kid, mom dies, he joins basically a sailing ship in space, and he learns to do some cooking and some like management. He takes some tests, and then he sells some stuff. That's it, right? Yeah, that's pretty much it.
Yeah,
and it's
quite nice.
wonderful.
It's nice.
Wonderful.
It's a great world.
Yeah.
I want to see a series built on this world. Like I really do. I think because not too like, I picture the Orville as well a little bit, where it's a realistic Star Trek.
Yes.
Right? So maybe not like Orville-esque with the comedy, obviously, but I don't know. I'd love to see it. I love the Burleson units that they have, that they talk about that they bend space, and they create their own little wormhole, essentially.
Okay, so let's talk about that. They don't really go into that too much in this book, but they do talk about it in the other ones. And one of the things, the reason why it takes so long to get between system to system is quite literally just, they have to get far enough out. They can't go super fast because it'll cause other issues. So you literally are kind of like coasting out to the edge of this solar system where it's fine. And then literally it's like snap, and you're at the next one. And now the rest of the time is just you slowing down to go back into the system. And yes, that totally makes sense. But it would also make sense as to why it takes weeks or months in some cases to get from one place to another.
Well, and again,
because space is big.
Yes.
Yes.
It's what they do talk about this later on in the other books, but you learn about the fast packets and like the smaller ships that can't hold as much, but they're doing week-long runs rather than month-long or even longer, right? 3-month runs. So, and then they do talk about the whole discovery of these different systems as well. And for a fact that a company would absolutely buy a planet and they would run it the way that they wanted to. Like, you would have
Amazon planet.
God, for sure. And you can't buy anything but what they sell. And it's
I mean, that's straight out of just like history everywhere. Like, the company town is a known thing, and it's still a thing depending on where you live. So,
yep.
So, was there anything else that in the book that anyone wants to bring up in particular that we didn't hit on? There's just lots of there's some little instances that I just really enjoy. Like, for example, the first time Pip does the, his calculation as to what they should, put in this extra storage space. and then that went successfully. And the second time, like he's sitting there, he's just kind of like relaxing in in the cafeteria, and I can't remember if it's Ishmael or Cookie, but they're like, "What would you say if oh, what's his name was standing behind you right now? What would
Mr.
you fill it with?"
Maxwell.
Yeah, what would you say if Maxwell was standing right behind you? And he's like, "Well, I would do this, and I would figure this out, and I'd probably put this much in there, and I think that's what we'd go with." And Maxwell, of course, is actually standing behind him. He's like, "Excellent. I just, give me your report as soon as you can." He's just like head down. He's just like, "Crap, I stuck it."
Yep.
But yeah, it's just enjoyable. You like these characters. You like seeing what's happening to them. You want to see what happens to them.
Yeah.
You
It just
meet
tags you along.
you meet Shaun in this one as well.
Who?
No, you don't.
No.
Oh,
Book
yes,
two.
you do.
Yes, you do.
The suit, the tailor,
You get the token in this one.
the tailor.
No, you don't.
Do you? I don't remember getting
No.
the.
That's
the
book
token.
two.
That's the
Oh,
second
is that
one.
the second
That's
one?
the second one.
Yeah.
Also, the problem
Nice
with
try.
listening to them, because it's just where it ends. You're like,
Yes.
what?
Yeah.
And then you have to
Yeah.
listen to the second one because it literally picks up.
Yeah.
That's why it's the same with the Bobaverse books. They all start bleeding
Yes.
together, so it's hard to figure out where one ended and the other one began.
I
Yeah.
love the fact that for the first several weeks, Ishmael didn't know there was a gym
There was a
Oh,
gym.
board.
God.
That was, I'm feeling claustrophobic. How do you guys put up with it? I don't know. Let's go to the gym and talk about it.
Yeah,
There's
let's
a
go-
gym?
I need a sauna. Let's go ahead.
Yeah.
You
sauna?
Yeah.
Or Pip was teaching him how to put the spacesuit on backwards.
Oh, that totally. Yeah.
You ever wear a Spirian suit there, Shaun?
Yeah.
I'll teach you.
First,
No.
you put it on your head. So we've mentioned this. We mentioned this at the beginning of the episode. We definitely can't close the episode without mentioning it. So the ending.
No.
Quote, unquote.
Yeah.
So they've had a couple of successful trades under their belt. They now have their own graph palette. They have chairs. They basically have everything they need to be successful, to look like they know what they're doing.
Mhm.
And they got everyone together, and they're literally about to walk off the ship. That's it.
Yeah.
That's the end of the first book, and it's just like,
And
well, what happens? Like,
Yeah.
were they
Especially
successful?
if you're getting the audiobook.
Oh my
They
god! I can only
include like
imagine.
the first 45 minutes of the
Yes.
second
yes,
book.
second book.
Yeah.
So I was like kind of rushing to finish because we were going to record this last week,
hmm
and I was rushing through because I was like, okay, where is the ending for this book? I can't quite remember, and I figure I had another hour left to listen to, and then the book stops. This is the end of the first book. If you wish to continue it, I'm looking at it, it's like, there's still an hour? Oh, you sons of bitches.
Yeah.
I was so pissed.
Yep.
And then I remember it's like, oh yeah, this is the spot where it ended the first time. Because I remember listening to the podcast and not sure if he was going to do more.
Mm.
And I was like,
Oh,
oh my God.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. I will say the one thing that I learned that if I'm ever on a ship of any sort and I know the captain, I have to recognize the captain whether they're naked or not.
Yeah, really.
Very true. Very true. Oh, that was something that I was going to talk about that we didn't bring up. There is definitely some, I don't want to say innuendo, but definitely we do talk about how most of the guys on the ship are probably in pretty good shape, and the ladies are probably so much, as well. And so, especially that first time that they're selling, like they put Bev and who was Diane, and they're like, yeah, most people were probably looking at Bev's butt and looking down Diane's shirt, and they're just like, yeah, that's how I sold stuff. Sue me. And I'm just like, you go, girl.
Yeah.
So
that was
but I
something else they do go on. Not too much in this book, the later books and all that, but so humans have gone out and colonized multiple planets. Multiple planets have different gravities and all that, and they do address that. Like
Yes.
Brill,
Who's
Yeah,
really
they
tall.
do say how tall she is, and she has to crouch down between hatchways.
Mhm.
And they later on, I can't remember.
Heavy
There's another
worlders.
the heavy worlders that have like a super high metabolism.
Yep.
Like he
They're
does
super-
kind of get into the science of that too, which is
Yes.
great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I will say, and what I was going to say was that even though he does, specifically point out that the ladies' physiques definitely help sell stuff, he also says, at one point she's like, you could have sold, you could have easily sold that for like, 10 credits more. He's like, why? Because she liked you. She thought you were cute. Like it's at no point do I ever feel like it's like going too much into, all right, well, I'm really going to describe how she looks on this one. It's always,
Yeah.
you get the idea that, okay, she's probably pretty shapely. She's probably very athletic. He's very, he's definitely stockier, or he's very muscular or whatever. Like, but it's not.
It's not the point.
It's
No,
no, it's not the point. It's to give
It-
you a general idea
Yeah.
of what this person is and let you fill in the rest of the picture yourself.
Mhm.
So,
Although,
and
opinion, I didn't think he should have been with Bev. I didn't like that.
Well, you're like, spoiler alert.
That's like
we're like 3 books down the
a
road
whole
or
other
2 books down the
series
road.
away.
Yeah.
I'm just saying I didn't like.
We'll get into that
That.
afterwards because
Yes.
we need to talk about that.
That.
So, well, if there's nothing else, I guess we'll go ahead and wrap up. Obviously, we all enjoyed the book. We all obviously will probably
Worst book
keep going.
ever.
Yeah, I know, right? So, I guess with that said, let's go ahead and move on to other things that we've been reading. Has anyone been reading anything else?
Half share.
Which, by the way, so this is quarter share. You can imagine the next book is half share. Half share. The next book after that is
Full share.
full share.
Yeah.
And then we get into more,
Double share.
yeah, double share, captain share, and then owner share, right?
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
And then after that, it gets a little wonky, but there's still more, still more Wong to
Doesn't he
follow.
like
So,
explore the other parts of that
So-
universe he's building?
yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Without getting into major spoilers, yes.
I haven't read any of those.
So, well, I guess before we jump into our other things we've been reading real quick, so our next book is the last one of the series that we have all picked. This one is your pick, right, Chris?
My
And,
pick.
and this one is called New Spring by Robert Jordan.
Yep.
So if you're following along, that's our book for March. Even though this will come out in March, but whatever time is hard. Because we're recording this the last day of February.
And I'm reading this, so there may be a couple of days where I'm just like
Just read. Gotcha.
just reading.
Well, you started saying, Ray, have you been reading anything else?
Yeah, so Black Fall.
Okay.
I did finish Black Fall.
Okay.
So
Apparently you didn't care for it.
no, we'll talk.
We'll talk. Okay, we'll talk.
We'll chat.
Okay.
What else? Did we mention Off the Record? Yeah, I think that was
Yes,
the
we
last
did. That
time.
was the last time. Yeah,
So that was good. Peter Mansbridge, by the way, Shaun, if you haven't read that one,
it's a good book.
Off the Record by Peter Mansbridge is a must read if you're
Yeah, I
Canadian.
remember you talking about that one last time.
Yeah. So, and then the Foo Fighter or Dave Grohl put out a book that Chris got me for Christmas that is sitting on my bedside table that I keep.
A few other books.
A few other books that I got, and it keeps teasing me. And I'm like, I need to dig into that book. Other than that, it's going to be a lot of IKEA manuals.
Light
Yeah.
read, heavy understanding, though. Nothing worse than getting it put like 3/4 of the way together and realize, oh, look, I put this board on upside down.
Yes. Thankfully, this is not the first IKEA kitchen I put together.
Well, good deal.
There you go.
Chris, are you reading anything else?
Yeah, I finished Prince Caspian from the Narnia series.
Okay.
I'm liking. I really like it. It's so quick. It's just really, really fast paced, and I like it. And then I finished a book in a day. It's called "It's Cool to Be Quiet." It's about being an introvert. which I really enjoyed. It's just a cute little quick book to read. And then now I'm reading something called The Night Circus by Aaron Morgenstern, and I'm listening to it, which is weird because it's narrated by Jim Dale. And he narrates the Harry Potter series. And so it's very odd because I'm hearing same characters. Like there's Dumbledores, and it's very weird to hear. Not Dumbledore, but it is. But I'm about halfway through that one, and it's interesting. It's about a magical circus during the late Victorian period in England, kind of all over the world, and a magical competition between these two people, and that's sort of where I've gotten to. They just found out they were each other's competition, but it's interesting. But it is throwing me that it's narrated by Jim Dale.
Yeah, whenever you hear, a reader and you assign them to a certain series and certain voices to certain characters, when you hear them read another series and it pops up and it may not be the exact voice, but it's close enough. You're just like,
really close.
That's definitely what's his name.
Well, Jim Dale said fuck, and I'm like, no. He didn't. You can't swear. He is the voice of Harry Potter. You can't do that. So, and apparently there's some spicy parts later on in this book that I don't know how I'm going to get through Jim Dale reading the spicy parts of this book.
That'll be
should be fun. I'm going to be blushing a lot, probably. Getting grossed out.
Sean, have you been reading anything else?
So I've started listening to The New Spring. Now, I've read it before because I've read the entire series, but I thought maybe I should brush up on it because it's been a long time. So I'm just listening to it, and it's good. Like I remember finishing the series quite a while ago. So like going and then watching Wheel of Time on Amazon.
Mm-hmm.
So now I'm like, this book is the prequel. So it's like, holy crap, the characters are so different here and that kind of thing. So, but it's good. I've listened to the Wheel of Time series as well as reading them. So, and it's by the same readers, so that's all right.
Okay.
And I'm trying to finish Star Trek: The Dark Veil. I think I was reading it last time. It's a Picard novel from like the Picard series. This one is focused on Riker and Troy, and it gives you more history of what happened, like in the Picard series, if you actually watched it, and Picard visits Riker and Troy and their daughter, but you find out they also had a son, Thad, and this gives you the history of kind of what happened to him, kind of thing. So it's sad. I've been reading it just over the last few days. I'm like, I am going to finish this book, and like when I pick it up, I have a hard time putting it down, but it's sad. So anyway, but no, especially with season 2 of Picard coming out this week, I'm like, yeah, I want to get some more of what actually happened beforehand for all this other stuff. So
it's in canon with the TV series?
Yes.
Okay, cool.
Oh,
yeah. Yeah, it gives you a lot more information on like with that, but also a lot of stuff with the Romulans and like with the synthetic life that they're so worried about and stuff like that. So yeah, no, it's really good.
Okay. I don't know how I got started on this. It was just I think Audible just kept recommending it to me, and I finally jumped into it. I cannot remember what the name of the series is. I think it's the Calamity series, but it's a series of books. Steelheart, Firefight, and Calamity. You've read those?
Yeah.
It is interesting. I like the world that it's in. I like the characters that are in it.
I think I only got about 3 books.
Yeah, there's only 3 books.
There's some smaller
spin-offs
that take place in between and all that.
Okay.
But I think I'm done where I left off. If there's more of the books come out, I'm like, whatever.
Yeah. It's interesting. Like this would have been an extremely novel idea years ago if it had come out then. I'm not sure when these books came out. Uh, in this series, basically, something happens called Calamity. They think it's a comet or something. It's basically just kind of like orbiting Earth, and it's given certain individual superpowers, and all of these people who have superpowers are all evil. And the first book is literally there's a super villain named Steelheart, and he's basically indestructible. You can't shoot him, you can't destroy him or whatever. He's taken over New Chicago, and he turned pretty much the entire city to steel.
Still.
This kid, he's lived there. He grew up there. His dad was killed by Steelheart, and he wants vengeance, and he finds the Reckoners, which is a group of normal people who are standing up and trying to fight against supers, or as they call them, epics. And it's an interesting story. It's definitely got its own take. It's got its own rules and stuff as to how things happen and everything, how the science and everything else works out. But it's a novel idea of how things are going, but it's definitely not. It's
also
not groundbreaking.
Young adult, I think.
So I could see that. It's just very. It's an also ran. It's not like in the age where we have things like The Boys and um um uh, is Invincible? Yeah. These supers are evil. Like, if people had superpowers, they would be horrible people. Um, we've kind of beaten that idea almost not even into the ground, like to the point it's just like, yeah, okay, that's its own subgenre now. So it doesn't really stand out in any particular way, but it's been an interesting read. So I think I'm halfway done with the third book in the series. So once I finish it, I'll be like, all right, cool. I definitely have enjoyed it. It's not been
Yeah.
a bad read, but it's not something that I'm going to be rushing to reread by any means. Not like the
Bobiverse?
the Bobiverse or the Magic 2.0 or honestly the Trader's Tales. Like all of those are just like put them on in the background and do stuff, and you dip in occasionally and have fun, and then you dip out and keep doing whatever it is you're doing. So
we actually started listening to the Wizard's Butler again as
oh,
well.
nice.
It's
yeah. Some books are just comfort. Like it's essentially comfort food for your soul or your brain. It's just you just enjoy it. So
and Trader Tales is that.
Yes, that it is. That it is. Well, that is our show for the month, ladies and gentlemen. If you would please give us a 5-star rating on iTunes, Google, Stitcher, wherever it is you listen to the show. You can also find us at Epically Geeky, where you can find all the rest of our shows to include Creatively Geeky, Sustainably Geeky, and the Epically Geeky show. Sustainably Geeky just had an episode that came out about environmental architecture, I think is what the term what it describes is, and the guy who talks about it says it actually should be called something a little different. And after listening to it, I agreed. But yeah, so definitely check out some of the different shows. Like I said, at the top of this episode, we will have another episode of Creatively Geeky. We just we had technical issues, so next episode may be a little on the long side. We'll see. As always, you can also find us on all the social media at Epically Geeky, to include Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Where can we find you online, Ray?
Reluctant Yeti on Instagram.
Chris?
At Victorian Botanical on Instagram. I not deleted. I deactivated my Rose and Hummingbird one until I figure this whole stuff out.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Sean?
Screwing with Wikipedia. And your favorite broken toy on Instagram.
And as always, you can find my individual wacky adventure online at Optimus Gene on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. For everyone on the site, have a good night.